Yo, what's up everyone? So today we're gonna dive into the world of operating systems, specifically yung tatlong major OS na most of us use today, Linux, Microsoft Windows, and Mac OS. Medyo intimidating yung topic, I know, pero chill lang. We will break down kung paano nagsimula yung mga to, ano yung major developments nila, and of course, paano sila nagko-compete pagdating sa usage, strengths, and weaknesses. So let's us jump right in by first looking back at the history of these three giant operating systems. Unahin natin si Linux. Hindi man siya kasing mainstream ng Windows or Mac, sobrang interesting ng history nito. Back in the early 80s, nagsimula lahat with the GNU project na sinimula ni Richard Stallman noong 1983. Ang vision ni Stallman is actually to create a free Unix-like operating system. From there, lumawak yung free software movement. Then fast forward to 1991, isang Finnish student na si Linus Torvalds ang nag-develop ng Unix-like core ng Linux as we know it. So just a fun fact, he initially called it a hobby project. Sinabi pa niya, just a hobby won't be a big and professional like GNU. But guess what? Nagkamali siya because now Linux powers everything from web servers to supercomputers. Now, here's an important date to remember. October 5, 1991. Ito yung araw kung kailan nirelease ang first official Linux kernel version, which is the version 0.02. No? Medyo basic pa siya, but it was enough to set the stage for a fully functional operating system. Then, come 1994, na-release yung Linux 1.0, the first stable version. It was no longer just a hobby because it became a serious player in the OS world. Fast forward to 2003, na-launch yung Linux 2.6 kernel, which pushed it even further lalo na sa enterprise world. This version supported 64-bit processors, which made Linux a go-to OS for bigger companies and servers. Okay, so Linux itself is actually just a kernel. But what makes it functional is yung mga tinatawag na distributions or distro. Dito pumapasok yung iba't ibang flavors ng Linux, each designed to cater to specific users. For example, Debian, which was released on 1993, is known for its stability at sobrang active ng community support nito. Next is Red Hat, which came out in 1994. Ito naman ang pinili ng mga big enterprises, especially for servers. And of course, who can forget Ubuntu, which was released in 2004. Ito yung nagbukas ng Linux sa casual users dahil sa user-friendly interface niya. And yeah, each distro has its own role in the Linux ecosystem, from heavy-duty enterprise needs to everyday desktop use. Now, let us shift gears and talk about Microsoft Windows. Ito, super mainstream. I'm sure most of us are familiar with it. Microsoft was founded by Bill Gates and Paul Allen back in 1975. Fun fact, it wasn't always an OS company. Nagsimula sina Bill Gates and Paul Allen as a software developer. Pero noong November 20, 1985, they launched Windows 1.0, which was a graphical user interface or GUI for MS-DOS. It wasn't a big hit yet, pero when Windows 2.0 came out in 1987, mas na-improve na yung graphics and features. Pero yung tunay na breakthrough is actually the Windows 3.0 noong 1990. This version saw massive adoption sa homes and offices because of its improved performance. Pero guys, kung usapang game changer naman, nothing beats Windows 95 actually, which came out on August 24, 1995. Dito lumabas yung iconic start menu and yung taskbar na sobrang useful, right? In just 4 days, actually 1 million copies of Windows 95 is actually sold. Next came Windows 1998, noong 1998. Mas in-improve pa yung hardware integration and internet features kasi remember, this was around the time na boom ang internet. Fast forward 2001, dito naman lumabas yung Windows XP which was such a big hit. Ang tagal bago pinalitan because it was stable, secure, and super user-friendly. Then came Vista noong 2007. Maganda siya tignan pero sobrang lakas kumain ng resources. That's why not a lot of people liked it. Now, after the Vista flop, bumawi ang Microsoft Windows with Windows 7 noong 2009. Ang bilis, ang smooth, and it quickly became one of the most loved versions of Windows. Pero noong 2012, Microsoft tried something different with Windows 8. Nag-shift sila to a more touch-friendly interface, pero it confused a lot of users kasi nawala yung start menu. They bounced back again with Windows 10 in 2015, bringing back the start menu and creating a more unified experience across PCs, tablets, and other devices. And most recently, we have Windows 11, which launched in 2021, focusing on productivity, virtual desktops, and tighter integration with other Microsoft services like Teams and OneDrive. Now, let's talk about Mac OS, which of course came from Apple. Alam nyo ba, Apple was co-founded by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and si Ronald Wayne noong 1976. Then on January 24, 1984, they dropped the Macintosh 128K and System 1. This was a huge deal back then kasi it introduced the mouse and graphical interface, which was revolutionary. Fast forward to 1998, Apple released System 6, which supported color displays and improved multitasking. Imagine how big that was during that time. And by 1991, System 7 was introduced, and this became the backbone for Apple's OS for most of the 90s. Pero the real game changer for Apple's OS came in 2001 when they launched Mac OS X 10.0 or yung codename na Cheetah. Dito talaga nagsimula yung modern Mac OS as we know it. Since it was Unix-based, naging super stable and reliable siya. Then Mac OS X 10.3 with the codename of Panther came out in 2003, introducing features like Expose, which let you view all open windows in one go, and File Vault, which encrypted your data. By 2007, Mac OS X 10.5 Leopard was released. Sobrang daming new features including Time Machine for backups and Boot Camp, which allowed you to run Windows on your Mac. That's why it makes Mac OS super versatile. Now in 2012, OS X 10.8 or the Mountain Lion came out and Apple started integrating more cloud-based features using iCloud. So making it easier to sync files and apps between Mac and iOS devices. Then in 2016, Apple rebranded their OS to simply Mac OS, starting with Mac OS Sierra or the 10.12 version. This actually marked the modern era of Mac OS. Then in 2020, they launched Mac OS Big Sur, which was optimized for Apple's own M1 chips, marking a huge shift in performance and design, aligning even more closely with the iOS experience. The redesign was big, making Mac OS more modern and intuitive. So, now let's do a quick recap of the different versions of these operating systems. Obviously, ang dami nilang pinagdaanan and bawat new version is an attempt to adapt sa changes sa technology at sa needs ng users. Every version has its own story, whether it is a hit or a miss. Let's start with the Windows. Okay, from Windows 1.0 in 1985 to Windows 11, presently, sobrang daming versions na lumabas, each one building on the previous ones. For example, Windows 95 brought the iconic Start menu. Windows XP and Windows 7 were super stable and loved by many, while Windows 10 and Windows 11 are pushing for a more unified experience across all device types, whether it's a PC, tablet, or even gaming consoles. Sa Mac naman, nagsimula tayo sa System 1 back in 1984 and nag-evolve siya into Mac OS X in 2001, which laid the groundwork for the modern Mac OS. And then with Mac OS Sierra in 2016, Apple made even more strides in making their OS work seamlessly with their other products like the iPhone and iPad. Ngayon, with Mac OS Big Sur and the introduction of M1 chips, talagang nare-redefine na nila yung user experience sa Macintosh. Pagdating naman kay Linux, hindi siya tulad ng Windows and Mac na may straight line of versions, but instead may iba't ibang distros or distributions. Well, Debian and Red Hat were released in the 90s, setting the foundation for enterprise and server use. Then, Ubuntu in 2004 made Linux more approachable for everyday users, while Arch Linux is for those who want total control over their operating systems kasi you can customize it from the ground up. Now, let's focus on the comparisons between the three operating system. All right. Sorry. Okay. Let's talk about numbers sa first comparison natin sa tatlong operating system na to. Right. Windows dominates the market with more than 76% of desktop users. Mac OS follows at around 15% and Linux kahit only around 2% siya sa desktop. It's a powerhouse pagdating sa servers and supercomputers. Each of these operating systems has its own strengths and weaknesses. Windows is great for gaming and businesses. Mac OS is the go-to for creative professionals, and Linux, well, it's a favorite for developers and those who need something customizable. So if we break it down further, Windows has the widest support pagdating sa hardware and software. Well, Mac OS, perfect for creatives kasi seamless yung hardware-software integration niya. Meanwhile, Linux stands out kasi open source siya, libre siya, highly customizable, and super secure. Pero each one has its own weaknesses, right? Windows is actually prone to malware. Mac OS can be expensive and Linux, well, medyo may learning curve. So, medyo mahirap yon for totally a beginner in operating system. Now, let's dive into the advantages and disadvantages of this three operating systems. Now, Windows is actually awesome for gaming and business nga, pero madalas siyang target ng malware, no? Mac OS offers a premium, well-polished user experience, but yeah, since it's premium, it comes at a higher cost and there is limited gaming options when you are to use Macintosh OS. Lastly, Linux is free, secure, and super customizable, pero hindi siya ganun ka beginner friendly. So there's a really steep curve of learning. So when you think about it, it all boils down to what you need, no? Windows is ideal for gaming and business users. Mac OS is perfect for those in creative industries, and Linux is the best for people who need flexibility and security. Sure, each has, meron silang kanya-kanyang drawbacks, pero to sum it up, to wrap everything up, there's no such a perfect operating system. It's all about trade-off. Mayroon siyang pro and mayroon din siyang consequences at the same time, no? Now that's it. That's all. Now to wrap things up, choosing the best operating system for you really depends on what you need. It's really up to you. Ano ba ang kailangan mo? If you are into gaming or work sa Windows, of course, Windows might be the best choice. Kung creative work naman ang focus mo, well, Macintosh OS can be a good consideration. And if you are into development or you just want full control over your system, you want it to customize, well, Linux is the key. Lahat ng operating system na to may rich history, unique strengths, and of course, weaknesses. Hopefully this presentation helped you better understand these operating systems and made it easier for you to pick which one is the best fit. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me today, and I hope that we all have learned something today. Bye!